And we're here at last! The final game in the Shantae Marathon, Shantae Half-Genie Hero, which is finally out after a long waiting period since its Kickstarter launched back in September of 2013. Oddly enough, around the same time as Mighty No. 9's Kickstarter. And while I did pledge to both, I remember trying to get the word out about this one for a long time, despite the fact I wasn't as big of a Shantae fan by that point. There was just something about it that told me this was a project that you didn't want to miss out on. Now I can already tell you from just the after Kickstarter, like with all the updates and whatnot, and the final product, Shantae Half-Genie Hero was handled much better than Mighty No. 9. Which I know isn't saying much, but you know. And I swear that's the last time I'll mention Mighty No. 9 for the rest of the review. I promise. Now while I did this marathon to get excited for the game finally coming out, it did make me kind of worry about it in the end. See, in this title, we would be transitioning back to the transformations again instead of the pirate gear, but if you've seen my previous reviews, you would know that I thought the pirate gear was overall a much better design tool than the dances. So moving back to that made me kind of worry that the problems with the first two games would come back with it as well. But you know, speculation's all over, the game is out, what do I think about it? Well, as a $60 backer, it's time to find out, so let's get started. The story here takes place when Shantae wakes up one night to a mysterious voice that leads her into the lower level of her uncle's workshop. The voice says to Shantae that the genie realm will soon be in danger from a dark force and she must be ready to face it when the time arrives. Meanwhile, Mimic has been working on a machine that will help keep Skulltown safe, and it's up for Shantae to find the remaining parts to it. From here, the overall plot takes a backseat. See, Half-Genie Hero is more of an episodic kind of adventure. You stop Risky from burning the town once again, you have a race on carpets, you stop a mermaid factory, and you help Shantae get her job back from another half-genie because she got fired again. Are you surprised? Are you honestly surprised? These all feel very separate, and the only thing connecting them is getting a part from Mimic's machine, and that's about it. Not to mention, characters pretty much stay the same throughout and don't evolve much, so it makes it work more like a Saturday morning cartoon. Which, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm not playing Shantae games for the story or big meaningful character development, but I felt like Pirate's Curse at least tried a bit more with giving these characters some, you know, character. And making a story that tied the wacky events that they kept getting into a bit better. While this one just kind of does things without really thinking how they connect. Again, it's minor, but it's something that I did miss. But I think I'm about done here, so let's move on to the presentation. I'll tell ya, as a backer, one of the things that made me want to support the Kickstarter right away was the presentation, and for an indie title, it looks fantastic! The art style has a thick, black line sketch art look that makes everything pop out so well and catches your eye right away. Now, the animation was led by Mario Cartwright, who was also the lead artist on an indie fighting game called Skullgirls. Great game you should check out, by the way. Anyways, being a big fan of that title, I noticed the art style right away and it blends together with Shantae so well that it demands your attention. And they really went out of their way to make the transformation seem more adorable this time around. Like, just look at the elephant, that thing looks like it's having the time of its life. The portraits also retain just as much charm as the ones from Pirate's Curse as well. They really give off a lot of emotions and some are just gold. I love this one in particular for Shantae, because that face has a story behind it, I just know it. I haven't commented much on enemy design in the previous reviews. I mean, they looked fine to me, but the enemies this time stand out a lot more than normal, mainly because of their animations and attacks. In particular, I love the boss designs in this game. Mainly the giant mermaid, this big caterpillar-like enemy, and the final boss, which I won't spoil, but it has a fantastic design. Characters also have a lot more voice clips this time around. Risky's Revenge technically introduced grunts for Shantae, and Pirate's Curse had a few spoken lines as well, but it was so minor that I didn't really spend time on them in the previous reviews. But this time you notice it a lot more, and honestly, it's welcomed. Kind of made me wish we got the full voice acting stretch goal, but oh well. Also, there's just something about this sound clip in particular that just gets me. It's like she's so bored with transforming all the time it's starting to get to her head. Does anyone else hear that? And as for the music, man, Jake Kaufman, you truly have been on a roll in recent years. And Half-Genie Hero is no exception. This may be the most upbeat track list of the entire series, almost club-like in certain songs. Like, listen to Burning Town with that in mind, you'll know what I mean. And the game has a proper theme this time, Dance for the Danger. Such a great song even 3 years since I first heard it, and still not sick of it at all. I think it's clear Half-Genie Hero's presentation is overall the best the series has had yet, but is the gameplay at the top of the heap? So I know I've said each sequel does change things up from the previous game, but I think that applies to Half-Genie Hero more than any of the previous reviews for the series. Mainly because it's not really a Metroidvania this time. It's more of a platformer with heavy Metroidvania elements. You have Scuttletown as your home base like the previous games, that has Mimic's workshop, the item shop, a gallery you can open up with keys containing concept art and even some fan art, with a little bonus for those who find all of them. The bathhouse to revitalize you, and has a lady in there that will give you tips on where to go next, and finally Sky's house, which acts as your level select. The levels themselves for the most part are very point A to B styled on your first run through, with 3 sections broken up by a save point between each, and at the end of the level you'll fight a boss. In the levels you will need to jump and whip your way through obstacles, and of course transform to progress. As the pirate gear has been put on a, leave of absence, let's say. Thankfully, all you need to do this time is press a button in a direction and the transformation happens. All the ones from the original Shantae and Risky's Revenge come back, but I want to talk about some of the new ones real quick. You have the crab, which is able to go underwater, pinch at kelp, and go up waterfalls. The mouse, which can scurry into tight places, the tree, which can produce fruit, the bat that can fly horizontally and see things in the dark, and various other spells like the warp dance that let you skip part of levels that you've already played. But you also have your trusty items back, and the system has been restored to what it was like in Risky's Revenge with the magic meter, with your items being pipe balls, fire, thunder, and a shield. All of them can be upgraded into 3 different levels, such as pipe ball turning into a field of scimitars, and the shield being able to give you complete invincibility. You also have your standard potions and hair upgrades, but there are some cool ones such as half damage or magic usage, or the one I highly recommend getting, Metronome, which speeds up the transformations even more. And honestly, that's all the new really in Half-Genie Hero, for the base game at least. If you played the previous games or have seen my reviews on them, you kind of know what you're getting into by this point. So with that being said, what are the elements that I did like? So Half-Genie Hero does have a lot of elements that made Pirate's Curse work in the first place, and it makes me happy to see that the series is really finding an identity for itself. First off, great writing as normal. Within a few minutes I was already cracking a smile or laughing at the jokes, and there are some big laughs in the story. Not every joke hits its mark, like the one about the reason behind the tower stage, I think was trying for that fourth wall humor a bit too hard. But when they hit, they hit. There's one with this guy, I'm not gonna spoil, but it got me to laugh really hard. Plus, I love that they've added a lot of visual gags in this time, with stuff like Bolo in the Mermaid Factory. That did get a laugh out of me the first time I saw it. And a lot of that kind of stuff is in this game and it's great. And that leads into the fantastic presentation for the game, which just looks great and this art style fits in so well. And I love the lighting in different scenes, like the opening at night and Burning Town, just so good. And of course for the music, it's just as good as you would expect from Jake Kaufman. Next, I'm so thankful for the improved transformations. You've heard me before that I didn't like the process of the transformations in the other games because it took too long and disrupted the pacing. Here, just press a button, then a direction, and then you're good to go. Not as fast as the pirate gear with them activating immediately, but I realize with the transformations, this is probably as fast as it's gonna get. And with that in mind, I think the transformations are at their most fun here because of how quickly you can swap between them, and they feel a lot more engaging to use, especially the heartbeat transformation. Man, I love this one so much because of all the freedom you're given with it. I also do find a lot of the levels to be fun. The environments keep changing things up, and each level does feel unique enough to stand out, with the giant mermaid factory, the vertical climb to the tower with the boss chasing you, the haunted mansion type level where it's set up like a maze, and my personal favorite level where you race on a carpet, take out forces in the sky, and then attack their main ship. That level is so much fun because it kept changing the scenario, and I always look forward to that one. And I also do want to give mention to the boss fights. I know I talked about the designs before, but I love how daunting they all are. I mean, just look at the size of some of these guys. Easily the biggest bosses we've seen yet, and I enjoy every fight, honestly. I think my favorite fights were the mermaid and the final gauntlet of bosses. They all have different strategies, engaging ways on avoiding their attacks, and satisfying notes to end a level on. However, this Half-Genie adventure also has another half I need to talk about. Unfortunately, Half-Genie Hero has a fair share of issues that do kind of hold this game back for me. And what's odd is that a lot of them seem to be in direct contrast to Pirate's Curse. You'll see what I mean as we go on. You have to backtrack to previous levels a lot with the new transformations you get in order to complete a task to open up the next level. Which, you know, par for the course with the series. But the difference is, you kind of expect that in a Metroidvania, but that feels a little awkward to do in a platformer. And hey, I'm all for doing it to get extra goodies like heart holders and whatnot, but to do that to progress in the main game in a platformer, to me is kind of a cheap way to extend the gameplay time. And a big reason why it's so time consuming is the complete removal of the map. Yeah, it's gone with no equivalent to help you out. That map helped me clued in on an area that I hadn't checked yet in Pirate's Curse to help speed up the process of backtracking. But without that or no checklist or anything like that, I often got into a level and had no idea where to search for what I needed, like the mouse portion of Mermaid Falls, which was easily the most frustrating part of the game, trying to figure out where that little white light was. And honestly, the backtracking took up a majority of my time. Around 1/3 to even half of the game, honestly. Whereas in Pirate's Curse, it was maybe like less than 1/4 of the game at most. And I'm not sure how everyone else feels about this, but I miss the dungeons from the other games because they're missing for the first time in the series. I felt like they did a great job in changing the pace of the gameplay and made you learn about your new abilities so they got time in the sun. But without them, the base gameplay does run its course within a few levels, without much changing things up besides just level gimmicks. Speaking of those abilities, while the transformations are handled the best here out of the 3 games that have had them by a mile, it once again falls into the trap of having the transformations not have their time in the sun, and I think you can make a solid argument that Half-Genie Hero has the worst balance of the transformations in the series yet. And what I mean by that is that it feels like you have 3 different groups of transformations. The first one are the ones you're going to use all the time and are great, stuff like the monkey, harpy, and mermaid that remain useful throughout the entire game. But that second group are the ones that get outclassed by another transformation later in the game, which is definitely stuff like the bat and crab. As soon as I got the harpy and mermaid transformations, which give you more movement options than the previous 2, I almost never used the bat or crab besides the very rare instances where they were needed. Couldn't they have just made that one transformation that did the roles of both? It feels unnecessary to have them split into 2 forms. And then you have that third group of stuff like the mouse and spider, where they are situational to the point you are almost never gonna use them besides the parts where they are mandatory. The mouse you are never using besides these small passageways that appear only once in a while. And the spider, I can maybe count on one hand the total amount of times I used that transformation in the whole game. And personally, I don't think it's as fun as it was in Shantae 1 and gets completely outclassed by the harpy. So while the transformation process is better, I don't think they really improved on how the transformations are used, unfortunately. And I still prefer the pirate gear as a tool for Shantae because of that. And this extends in the New Game Plus mode, Hero Mode, where you are given some of your transformations, but you need to unlock all the other ones you find in levels, and even need to get all the upgrades for the transformations. That's really lame. And because they don't give you that much to start with, you still have to do just as much backtracking in the main quest. I mean, if you're gonna do a mode like this, go all out. All transformations, all power-ups, the whole thing. Kind of like Pirate's Curse and its pirate mode. There's not much of a reason to play this mode, just stick with the normal game, honestly. And I also felt that the end of the game was a little weak this time around. Besides the boss gauntlet, which was fun, but getting the true ending really doesn't change much, and is once again used as a means to get more playtime. which isn't much considering that the game only took me about 6 hours on my first run, where 2 to 3 of those hours were used to backtrack in the previous levels. And that to me is a problem. Half-Genie Hero is a bit of a weird one to crack. I think it's overall much better than the previous 2 games that had the transformations, but I don't think it's as good as the game that didn't follow the formula, that being Pirate's Curse. So it's a bit of a weird one to judge for me, but after thinking it over for some time, I think I finally have come to a conclusion. So overall, Half-Genie Hero was a fun time. They have fine-tuned a majority of the problems from Shantae 1 and Risky's Revenge, and have made a game that is much better designed around Shantae's transformations with a gorgeous presentation that is a ton of fun to play. At the same time though, I am partly disappointed to see them take a lot of steps back from Pirate's Curse, mainly in the level design, backtracking, and functionality. While Pirate's Curse streamlined all of them in order to make a more fun and replayable experience, Half-Genie Hero felt like it borrowed more from Risky's Revenge by stretching the game time out through artificial ways that make it a bit harder to recommend. But with that being said, Half-Genie Hero was still a fun time, and I think it is a pretty good starting point if you want to try the series out. Though with the base adventure, $20 does feel a bit much considering Pirate's Curse offered more for the same price. I'd say around the $15 mark is a golden price, so I'd say pick it up when you see it around there. But you may have noticed that I said the base game, because Shantae Half-Genie Hero will actually be receiving some DLC with 4 extra playable characters, being Risky with the pirate gear in tow, and for the first time ever, Sky, Bolo, and Roddytops will be playable as well. I'll do a follow-up video once they're all released, as they're not all out by the time of this review. And that ends the Shantae Marathon, and overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, and hopefully I got you guys to try out the Shantae series as well. Well, maybe not so much games like Shantae 1 or Risky's Revenge, as I found them just kinda bland, but games like Pirate's Curse and Half-Genie Hero, you should give a shot, especially Pirate's Curse, which for me right now is the be-all end-all title of the series. I think the future is looking bright for the Shantae series, not just because of games like Pirate's Curse, but I think the market of today can actually help Shantae out more because word of mouth goes a lot farther today than it used to. Back when Shantae came out, it was all about the marketing of the game because of the absence of the internet. And really, how would you market a character like Shantae back then? I mean, the game is bright and colorful, but you really can't aim it at kids because of Shantae's design and the belly dancing, and older gamers might be past the point of trying it out. But with the indie scene as it is now, and our digital services, and how the internet can let games like Shantae be known about, I think Shantae will continue to thrive for a while as long as WayForward wants to keep her around. And whenever her next adventure arrives, I'll be sure to take another good old trip to Sequeland once again. But we are in a new year now, so that means new games, new marathons, maybe some anniversaries I need to catch up on. But I think I got some work to do, so I'll see you guys later. I've been able to keep this whole walking in joke going on for the past few videos, and I'm gonna do it here too.